So I'm going to go ahead and pick it up at the slideshow.
And please do keep yourself muted if you're not asking a question.
All right, so the beginning of my presentation has part of the mosaics from the Villa Romana de Castiglia in Sicily from 320. It's 3, 4, 5, I think 5 mosaics together. It looks like it's an exercise competition if you look through the whole thing. But we're going to cover everything from the underwear to the outer garb. I don't have time to talk about jewelry or makeup in this presentation due to time. There are some videos in it, and this is recorded, so you'll be able to go back and look at it later. So the first thing is underwear, to wear or not to wear. In the current Middle Ages, it's completely up to you. In a period, it was mostly deemed proper for women, even prostitutes, to wear the strophium or the breast wrap. Now, I don't know, and I have not done any research on this, although it is kind of sending me down a rabbit hole to find out, because the ideal woman seemed to have had smaller breasts if they did breast binding the same way that the Chinese did foot binding, to try to keep the breasts smaller. Now, as for the bottoms, there's going to be a better picture of this, but these are bottoms that were actually found at a first century dig in London, the ones here in the center. And then these are reproductions of those, and then this is a reproduction with the breastband, but those will all be on a different one. But for the modern Middle Ages, it is completely up to you. So here's a bigger picture than one of the mosaics from the Bikini Girls. So you can see she's lifting weights. I'm guessing that's a rope that she's playing with. So they're basically doing CrossFit here. So they're running. At the end, there's somebody awarded with a laurel wreath and a fan, and it's just a really pretty mosaic. I probably should have included the whole thing in the presentation. But so here's more on the sublugar, or the bottoms, depending upon which century you're in. Understanding that as I'm going through this, I'm focusing on 1st century BCE for my personal persona. The Roman Empire actually covered a 1200-year span. So this is an example from A.T. Klum's book, who is where I got most of my primary documentation on, for how underwear is designed. Now this one is going to give you kind of the diaper effect, whereas a more hourglass figure, and as you can see from these leather ones that were found in the trash heap, they were very small and presumed to be worn by young acrobats. So they were decorated. This is a mock-up with the decorations and the tying in those. Now the bottom picture is actually out of period. This is an excellent example from, I believe, the 13th century, but you see how the construction would be very similar. Now, I would make the assumption, given that women's body functions have not changed since, ever, that underwear was definitely in at least 1 week of the month. The other times it's perfectly up to you. Now, talking about the strophium or the breastband, these are all pictures or of Aphrodite or Venus, depending upon whether you're talking about Romans or Greeks, holding a breastband. And you can see, and these all date between the 1st and 3rd centuries, you can see how smashed they're making her breasts. Now in the statuary, it shows it quite thin, but in the picture, it shows it wider. And I have found just from personal use of the strophium that using the wider, about an 8-inch breastband, about 6 yards of it, will strap it adequately to keep it secured. So I'm going to go into a little video. I did pre-record some of this, so I wasn't trying to do it now. I'll give it a second to load. And I'm hoping that it does load because it's actually from my other stream. If not, this is going to be a really sucky presentation, and I apologize. Okay, fine. I'm going to sign in. Hang on. I got to sign in as my other. No, no, that's not me. This should give us access to the video. I don't need to save my password. Is it going to give me access? No. Oh my God. Sorry, I'm a professional trainer and this is the worst presentation ever. Sign in. Ah, yay. It looks like we're going to have success. Cool. Maybe. Aha. Yes, we are. Good. It's going to take a minute, apparently, to load. Here we go. All right. So at this moment in time, I am in my long johns. I'm not wearing a bra. So this is my naked or undressed portion for the underwear. Now, for the bottoms, I don't have any bottoms to demonstrate, but we will talk about that on the, or have already talked about it on the Bikini Girls slide. Normally, I either wear long johns underneath, which it was perfectly period for Roman women to wear pants, or if it's hot, I'm al fresco. That's just the way it is. Now on the top, I also don't need to wear anything on the top because I'm kind of built like a boy now after losing about 100 pounds to throat cancer and getting it back. But I am going to talk to you about how to put a strophium on. The strophium is the breastband. So this is, I actually, when I was on vacation in Minnesota, I picked this up. This is cotton. It's from the Mung Market. I did cut it in half, but there's still a lot of material here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom and kind of like an ace bandage, just wrap it around myself. So making sure that it's secure, doing the first wrap underneath. And then I'm going to start, it's a little higher up on my back. So when I come down, I'm like just under my armpit. And then I will come down in a V down a little bit. And then when I come back around again, this time I will come up and go underneath the breast and go around the top like I did before. And come down. And then bring it around the bottom. And then it comes up. And then I should have just enough to get around me. So here is the end of my material. So I'll be able to make the V in the front. I'm going to go ahead and tuck this a little bit in just because it also, I haven't stitched it yet, so it has a tendency to fray on that little edge. So I'm going to tuck it. And you can, if you wanted to, you could tuck it to where you can pin it between the breasts. Now, would it be appropriate to use something like this fibula? I only have one. The other two are on a dress, and the rest of them are still packed away for Gulf Wars. So I don't know. You would take the fibulas and run them through just as you would any modern safety pin, which is what I'm going to switch to now because I'm out of fibulas. As I said, I have two on a dress,
but I'm going to pin it both top and bottom to secure it. And I'm just going through the top layer and into the second. You could pin it through all of the layers if you're worried about security. So it's now on. In fact, that's actually a little insecure on the bottom because I was talking and not paying too much attention to what I was doing.
Also can't see myself. So
I'm going to go ahead and tighten that up and pin it through multiple layers just to make sure that stays nice and secure. And no one's going to see the safety pin underneath your dress. So now I have my strophium on. It's on. I can bounce, I can jump, I can run, I can play, I can compete in sports, I can do whatever. So this is what you see the bikini girls wearing. Although theirs is a little narrower in the mosaic. But this is the way I found for it to stay on the best for me anyway. Is to start a little bit underneath the bosom and come up. So it's going to depend upon how you're built, on how you do this. But this is the general idea. It's like an ace bandage. Now, when I go places and tell people that I'm a throat cancer survivor, they assume when I'm wearing this that it's breast cancer. But let me say this. I would rather see this than, I don't want to sound like a garb snob. But if you put all of that effort into making a beautiful dress, and then when you lift your arm, they see nasty, raw, sweat stuff. So yeah, I am sounding like a garb snob because I kind of am in that respect. Because you put so much work in your dress, you pick out absolutely beautiful fabric, and if you don't tie it right, which is what we're going to talk about in one of our next segments, it's going to ruin the whole effect in some regards. So I'm going to stop this one. This is a strophium. And then when I take it off, actually, I'm not going to stop it quite yet. I'm just going to unpin it and re-roll it and put it away. When you wash this, put it in a delicates bag because it will tie up. Wouldn't say I know from personal experience or anything, because it will tie up in your washing machine. So I'm going to go ahead and unroll, and I'm just going to take it off. I'll unroll it later. Y'all don't need to see that part. It's just like rolling an ace bandage back up. I would say you could substitute an ace bandage, but I don't think that the latex in the ace bandage is good for your skin, especially in hot weather. So rolling it up. It is 8 inches wide cotton. You can use cotton. You can use linen. Like I said, I got this one at the Mung Market. I have no idea what it's called. So I don't know where to tell you to get it, and I haven't found it anywhere before. If I do, I will make sure to add it to the Courtesans page as soon as I figure out what the actual name of this is in Hmong, so you can possibly order it online. All right, that would be the end of video 1.
all right, so while I'm stopped on that video, does anyone have any questions about what I'm talking about so far, other than the fact that I've established myself as a total and utter garb snob?
We've got 2 questions. The first is, how do you know how long the fabric needs to be?
That actually took wrapping it around myself a couple of times to figure out where I wanted to cut it. So mine, and I was a little bit bigger when I had that, so it's just going to be what stays. I think it was 25 feet total, and I ended up cutting it in half. So that just takes trial and error to figure out what fits you the best. And you'll find that's true as we go on to the belting.
All right, and then
adequate 6 yards.
So basically trial and error.
Trial and error, yeah. Because not every woman is shaped differently. I'm shaped like a boy, so it's going to take less to hold me down than it would with someone with, you know, larger bosoms.
Awesome. Folks who asked that question, if that doesn't give you your answer, poke in chat again. I have a question here. By pants, do you mean braque?
Yes, you can wear braque. There is an Etruscan statue from around the 1st century that shows a person in a bodysuit that looks very similar, except it's very colored. When they did the coloration on the statue, when they did the x-ray to see what the colors were, that was a completely fitted bodysuit. So tight sleeves, long johns, if you wanted to be period, yes, you would wear the Roman period pants. I'm mainly concerned with, not freezing to death because my thermostat doesn't work anymore. So I use long johns as a substitute. But yes, we're going completely period. Does that answer your question?
Poke and chat if not. What time period is the strophium worn?
Strophium was worn throughout. I primarily focus on Pompeii, but it's shown up everywhere since before the 1st century CE. I would say from 1st century CE to like 4th century BCE or longer. I had that backwards. So for a long period of time, and unfortunately, I don't have my notes with the time frames on it because I'm so unprepared for this. My main focus is on 1st century, but I know that it's shown up. So like the bikinis, the bikini girls mosaic is 3rd century Common Era. The statuary, some of it is 1st century before Common Era. So the underwear was definitely in for a long period of time.
All right, looks like that's all the
Even
questions.
though,
oops, sorry.
No problem. No problem. Even though, as we'll discuss later, I'm going to give the caveat that on the ideal body, when you look at the statuary and we talk about the thickness of the material, you'll notice that none of the statues are wearing breastbands unless they're specifically putting on a breastband, which kind of has me confused, but it is what it is. I think they just liked A cups. There's a quote, and it's actually in my handout from Ovid that says, actually, is it Marshall? It's Marshall says, breastband compress my lady's swelling breasts so that my hand might find something to clasp and cover. Where Ovid said that the sight of a large-breasted woman unrestrained by a breastband would cure a man of love. So apparently the breastband was definitely in, even if underwear was not. Next, I'm going to go to how to talk about a dress. I actually had intended to remove this picture and put in a different one because I initially started with this picture as my demonstration for myself before I started making garb. Guys, this does not work. This eventually cuts off circulation to your arms and starts digging into underneath your breasts. So I'm going to talk about how to make a dress and the way that I do it and my inspiration for it. So these are pictures of me. This was me when they announced us to be Baron and Baroness of Axmore. So that was circa 06. This one is probably circa, and I'm wearing pretty much just a tunica as opposed to a chiton in these. And a pala. I choose not to wear the stola, which is the matronly garment that goes over the top. I'll talk about it, but I don't wear it, except actually I am wearing it in this video, but in this picture, but you can't tell because it's made out of the exact same fabric. And the only reason that I do that is because that fabric is so thin. If I wore it in only one layer, I would be arrested, especially at the public library, which is where I was at when that picture was taken. So I do have the overdress on with this one, as well as an underdress, just in case I was backlit, because we were going to be around little kids. So here's some more pictures. This is me cheating as a larger woman, where I just tacked it to the hip and left it open. Most of mine are made out of saris, actually, or linen. This is another sari. This is a Pie Appear fundraiser, by the way. And then this is where we are fighting for a crown list. You can see one of the lovely ladies, Allison, who was in my procession that day, is wearing a peplo style short chiton. So that peplo style is where it has that front bib. And then I generally use, because we're up and active, Paula's, even though it does say that there is a measurement for them, which is about 3 feet by 6-7 yards. I have found that it was what you could afford, because at the time, through most of the Roman period, fabric was more expensive than gold. So they showed their wealth in their bling. And you'll also notice as I go through some of these, when we actually start getting to the Roman pictures, that Roman versus Greek, there is not a lot of ornamentation on Roman dresses. This would be like a wedding dress with a little ornamentation on the bottom, because Rome had so many sumptuary laws and they were so restricted. They expressed themselves through the jewelry and their hair and other things that were not restricted by sumptuary law. So the next video is how to make a dress without a stitch. And yay, it didn't take so long to load. And I'm sorry, the light fabric was all I had, and I realized when I was playing the video back that it's kind of hard to see in some spots, but my instructions, you should be able to get the idea.
All right, welcome to part 2. This is going to be how to make a dress. I was going to do a class on how to make a Roman dress without a stitch. So I'm kind of combining those two classes. This is fabric that I picked up at Gulf Wars last year, because everything that I had got drenched. So I just bought a piece of fabric, and very quickly, without a stitch, just using fibulas and safety pins, made a very quick dress. So I'm going to go through those steps with you. So this, which I actually did just cut down, because it was 4 yards of fabric, it was a little bit much. I am 5'4". So this does go from neck to ankle. This is the appropriate size for me, and I think this is 45 inches. So this is just regular lightweight handkerchief, or lightweight linen. And I cut it down to 1, 2, right at 3 yards. I had it at 4, and it was when I did the first version of this video, it was excessively long and got bound up. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to fold it in half. Now you'll see the hand sanitizer come out in just a minute to hold down the fabric. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to make sure this end is going to be the bottom of a sleeve. So this is my folded in. This end also is going to be the bottom of a sleeve. So what I want to do is overlap that a couple of inches. Now, if you have a sewing kit with you, this is great. If not, safety pins, I always carry a plethora of safety pins and or fibulae, which I need to buy more fibulae or hopefully find them, because I don't know where they are right now. So I'm going to take a couple of small safety pins. And by the way, when I'm sizing my dresses, I always use safety pins first before I make any stitch, because most of my garb is very lightweight linen, or it's silk, or it's a cotton linen blend, or a silk blend. So I've overlapped this about 3 inches. And all I'm going to do is put 2 little safety pins in it on the inside, kind of tucked in where you can't really see it. Now, like I said, this is where if you have a, a sewing kit with you, this would help you because you could just do a couple of whip stitches and no problem. If you wanted to, you could whip stitch the side down and it would be fine. So these are going to show a little bit on the inside, but that's fine. So this is making a dress when you've got nothing to wear because it's all soaking wet because your friggin' tent flooded because it's Gulf Wars and it rains like always. It inevitably rains and sometimes it floods your tent. This was not Gulf wash. This was just our tent. The wind was so bad that it blew water into our tent. So now what I'm going to do while I'm, just rambling on about, Gulf wash and stuff, I have a tube. Essentially, that's what I've got is I have made a tube. So now I'm going to take both edges of my tube and I'm going to fold said tube in half. Again, we're going to flip this in front of the camera, and try not to have to put the hand sanitizer on it to hold it down. So it's folded in half. I am going to put a safety pin, but I'm actually not going to close the safety pin right here. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up. Here's my safety pin. So I'm going to take a second safety pin, also unclosed. I'm going to remember where my mark is, and I'm going to separate the 2 layers of fabric. Because one of these is going to make the back of my neck, and one of these is going to make the drape in the front. So this is where people who sew and measure and do all of that elaborate costuming, I've had several people in my kingdom come up and go, I just cannot get Roman garb. And it's because you're overthinking it. Seriously, this is so easy peasy. Once I show you the tricks, these little tricks, you will have it down. All right, let me put that back in there. And it doesn't matter if it's completely perfect because of the way the garment flows. So this is my back measure. I have a fairly slender neck, and it's equivalent to what I want, and where I want it is about the width of both of my hands together, maybe with my thumbs splayed apart a little bit. So I'll go ahead and put my hands where my thumbs are lined up with the center on this safety pin. And then I'll come here to the edge of my hand, and I will put in a safety pin without closing it. And then I'll put my other hand here, and I will take a safety pin, and I will put a safety pin here without closing it. And then I can remove the center one. So this is the back of the neck of my dress. Now I'm going to attach it to the front of my dress. So here's the front of my dress with the safety pin, measuring the center. And get it flat so we can see where that safety pin is. So this time, instead of just doing one hand, I'm going to splay my fingers slightly, and I'm going to do 2 hands. I'm going to go 1, 2 to the outside. Or if you want it closer, you could do it simply like that. However you want to do it. Play around with your necklines. I don't have much of a bust, so I wear my neckline a little higher maybe than some, or else you'd be looking down my dress, and I'm not overly fond of that. So I'll put my hands together, fingers slightly splayed, and I'll just fold it over and go to where my thumb is, and I'll take that piece of fabric and I will pin it to the back of the neck and close that pin. Or your fibula. So if you were using fibulas, this would actually look right. You wouldn't have to stitch anything. You wouldn't have to do anything. I'll show you, and I'll have some slides that we will talk about or have already talked about different techniques. I'll take some pictures of my other garb. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Fingers slightly splayed, fold it out. I'm going to take that and pin it. That is the front of my dress. So then I can take this center safety pin out. Now, This is only going to get one, maybe two. So this is the drape in the front. This is the back of my neck. This is the front of my dress. These are my armholes. These are a little wide. I could do it from here, but I'm not. So I'm going to go ahead and take this, and I'm going to do one hand width. I'm all about the hand widths. One splayed hand width, because you definitely want at least 12 inches for your arms to fit through, or else it's going to cut up into your armpit, and that's not comfortable. So I'm going to line this up, take a slightly splayed hand, and just put a safety pin right here, or a fibula. And you can put these in backwards, and while I'm doing it on this side, slightly splayed hand, and I'm going to put my safety pin in. So this is essentially my dress. The next segment will be belting. Sorry, my son just walked in. So the next segment will be belting. But before I do that, I want to show you another dress. And I've worn this dress for probably about 3 or 4 years now, and this just goes to show how lazy I am. This one I did serge, so it is a tube, but here are my fibula. You know what this is? This is a jewelry finding with a really big safety pin through it. Now, I've worn this dress for 3 years now. It has been washed. It has been hung up. It has had all things to it. Oh, by the way, while I've got this one out, another thing I should mention while we're talking about dresses, when you do put a seam in your dress, I always put my seam as the very back of the neck. So this is where I serged my dress, and it's the back of my neck. Because it's very hard when you're pulling things in and arranging things to try to make it line up on the side. I did that for the longest time, and then I figured out if I just put it at the very back, nobody's going to notice. Nobody's going to care. You know, it doesn't really show on the back side. And there you go.
All right, so that was essentially the making portion of a dress. I'm going to go through some of the attachments, and these are some of the attachments on my dress. This is a jewelry finding. This is just trim. These, actually, I made a tube on this one. I just put a little hem in it and then ran, honestly, I think it was, oh, I'm all about the hacks. I actually think this one is put together with cooking string and then sewed some buttons on it. This is that peacock dress that I was wearing. So looking at some actual statuary, and I also really love the paintings by John Godward. His paintings, I think, really, really capture the spirit, and comparing them next to the statuary of the dresses. And it can give you an idea of what it actually might look like on a real person. So did anybody have any questions about the video before I move on into the attachments?
I'm not seeing anything in chat so far.
Okay, cool beans. So here is side by side. This is a Godward painting, and this is a statue. I think most of the statues I pulled are circa 1st century. One thing that I did notice that is also on the statuary and in his paintings that I didn't talk about is that first one next to your neck. You might want to put in, especially if you're going to use a long flat tie, you might want to put these two attachments closer together and then spread them apart and make these consistently. Like this would be 1.5 to 2 inches, and then these would be 3 to 4 between. Does that make sense? I think that just helps keep the, when you tie your dress, I think it just keeps it secure. And then you can see here where she's got the dress tied. It's going over her shoulders and under her bust. And you can see there is a double wrap under the bust if you look at it close enough. It'd be so nice if these statues were actually back in the colors that they were originally in. So a good example of what a chiton or a sleeveless tunica should look like with no belting. I have a comparison to that. Me with a pie in the face. That's essentially the same thing. Now, in Godward's paintings, most of the palas are wrapped around their waists. I don't know how accurate that is, but it is, you can do that, and I've worn it that way before. This is the new Middle Ages. I'm going for what's comfortable. I've also used the pala, which is the overgarment, as a sack when I've forgotten to bring a bag with me. So here's a good example of what a woman looks like in a dress. So this is what I in my head look like when I'm wearing a dress. Based on the statuary as well. So this one has the buttons, the strap, the drape in the front. You can see it's tighter on the back side. So that neck is definitively smaller than the drape in the front. And then she is wearing a pala, which is the overgarment. And I have some better pictures of that as we go on. Here is another version. This is the way I strap it underneath the arm. So when I do bend over, you can't see straight into, like, see if I'm wearing a bra or not wearing a bra, you can't see straight into my dress. This is the back side, what it should look like. Now, I will give a caveat in the videos that I have did for this. I could not see myself. So yes, there is a gaping spot in the back that I missed. I would have had somebody went up to a friend and gone, hey, is my butt hanging out, before I actually went outside. But this is what it looks like in the back with the belting. And then these are versions of the pala. So we see different sizes. This is a shorter, more like a pashmina. And this is what I primarily wear with mine. This is one that's longer, but still narrow. And then this is the full on, I'm wearing it as a sun cover and modesty garment outside. And these are all correct ways to wear this garment, as borne out by, if you look at statuary, throughout the Roman Empire. Now, this is the one, how to tie yourself up. I apologize, my underdress is showing in this. I would have had somebody fix it had I help with the video. So this is after I've made the dress. This is actually the next day, because the first time I did it, I didn't realize how bad it came through with the glitch. And it wasn't moving at all, so.
Hi, this is part 3, and this is actually putting on and belting your dress. I had done it once when I was wearing the long johns, but the video quality was really poor, so I'm doing it again, and something more like what you would actually wear. So this is just a little shimmy, and also all you Vikings out there who have those white underdresses, those work great as well for keeping your arms covered and not getting your arms sunburned, and it's perfectly period. So let me go ahead and take that dress that I made yesterday in the other videos, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on, and then I'll show you how to belt it. So I make sure that I'm as far as I can go on each side, which means my neck should pop through the neck hole. Da, da, da. Now I'm wearing a tube bag. All right, so how do I turn this bat wing thing into a rockin' hot dress? Now, I will say that a lot of it has to do with what I'm about to show you, how you belt it, but also the bling that you wear along with it. That bling really, really makes the outfit. And if you look at the Roman women and the statuary, or more importantly, the paintings and from Pompeii and some of the sarcophagus paintings from the period from Egypt, you'll also see that bling made the woman. So fabric was very expensive, so they probably didn't have too many outfits that they wore. But in a lot of cases, gold was actually cheaper than the fabric because it took so much to make said fabrics. So now, how am I going to make this look like a dress? Well, I have some tablet woven trim here. Now, when I got this trim, I was about 100 pounds heavy, actually about 60 pounds heavier, because I lost 100 pounds and gained 40 of it back to be at a healthy weight. So this is a little bit longer than what I actually need, but this gives me now the ability to girdle it down and show that I have a waist, which is kind of cool because I actually have a waist now. So this is about 6 yards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 7 yards. All right. So what I've done is I've taken my 2 ends, put them together, and I'm going to find the center of my trim. I found the center. I'm going to take the center and put it under my bust, go around behind my back. Now you'll see when I pull it around that the sleeves are kind of messed up. Now you can zhuzh if you want, or you can leave them to the back. Either way is fine. So I'm taking that cross and I'm pulling it over my shoulder, trying to keep this trim flat. Now, if you have an excessive amount of trim like I do, be careful you don't tie your feet up and fall because that's just not cool. All right, so under the bust, around the back, over the shoulders, and I have a cross in the back. Now, what I'm going to do to make the sleeve, so when somebody looks in my dress, they're not going to see if I'm bent over straight into my boob, is I'm going to take it underneath my bosoms, back behind me, down at my waist. Now I'm going to cross it again and bring it to the front. So at this point, where this a normal length of trim, I would tie it off. But I'm not. I'm going to girdle it. So I'm going to cross it again and then bring it down on my hips and bring it forward and tie it. Now, what I normally do when I girdle mine, if you're a thinner woman and you want to do this, is I will put a decorative pin, fibula in here, or a safety pin from the back side so you don't see it. Because as you sit and move, this is going to work its way up. So you're going to be adjusting this throughout the day, much like you would any other garment. But this is how to turn a tube into a rockin' hot dress. Now, let me zhuzh my sleeves a little bit. Get them out from inside of my fabric there. And it looks like I'm wearing a short sleeve dress. There you go. That's all there is to it. Now, there are other ways to tie it, and we can go more into those in a different video, but I only have an hour to present. So this is the video on how to tie. I'll do it one more time. All right. Oops. No, I didn't drop the trim on the floor. So, center of the trim, under the bust, around the back. Make sure you got it flat, and then bring it up over your shoulders. All right, over the shoulders, behind the back again, to the waist this time, and cross again. This is where you could tie it and call it a day. But I have so much trim, I can't do that. So I'm doing the girdle. Cross it over, bring it around my hips and into the front, and tie it. Now, I will say Same steps in reverse. If you have bosoms, which I don't, so this does not work for me, bra, strophiumed or unstrophiumed. This does not work for me. But if you want the cross in the front, do the steps that I just did in reverse. Start with the center of your trim at your back, cross in the front, and work your way down. I'll try it.
So actually I tried it and it looked horrible, so I cut the video. So any questions about that? And is that explained adequately? Am I still online?
Yes.
Okay. So that's basically how to trim it. I have found that that is the most comfortable way. I cook feasts in garb. I run autocrat in garb. I have done entourage in garb. And that is the best way that I have found to tie it so you don't end up binding up your shoulders and having the fabric cut into your armpit. Now I've done some elaborate tying for like costuming and stuff, but for functionality, I think that this is the most periodically accurate, being that on a lot of the statues we can't see the back because they're all covered by palas. This just, from looking at the statuary itself and what we can see of it, makes the most sense.
Question in chat, how wide is the trim you're using?
That trim, so I've used everything from that trim, which is about 1.5 inches, maybe 1 3/4 inches, to my favorite actually is on the next video, but you can't see it, is actually a silk and cotton blend thread that is just a thick braid. And I've also used, when I've taught a class, I use clothesline, the cotton clothesline. As long as it's cotton, it's a natural, or silk or a natural fiber. Don't use anything like, don't use parachute cord. If you're playing around with this, don't use parachute cord to tie yourself up, because that'll give you a plastic burn. But you can use varying sizes from fairly thin. I wouldn't go any thinner than, say, 1/2 to 3/4 inch. But if you're doing it thin like that, make sure it's fairly thick, to about 2 to 3 inches, depending. I have very narrow shoulders, so really, really fat trim looks kind of ridiculous on me. Also, the statement that I said in there about girdling it down and being a thinner woman, that is not being size discriminatory. That's being, I was a thicker woman and am now a thinner woman. And when I tried to do that when I was heavier, which I did try to do that same girdling when I was a little bit heavier, it rode up a lot more just because of the shape of my tummy. So that is by no means being discriminatory. That's just saying from personal experience that didn't work, and then everything ended up under my boobs. So any more questions? We are almost at the end of my time. I have one more video for you just to end on a laugh.
I do have a question, if that's okay, about I'm a curvier woman, so if I would want to try this amazing girdle wrap thing, would pinning it with a fibula help keep it in place, or am I just doomed to adjust and readjust?
No, pinning it with a fibula would help keep it in place. Actually, one of the nice things that I like is we're a family of 4. So when I go and we get the cool pins as side tokens, that's 4 fibula I can use. But no, do it through not only your trim, but pin it into your dress as well, and it'll keep it at that spot in your dress.
And thank you so much. And you would recommend about 2 inches wide for that, because there's a little more of me. So all right.
Yeah, about 2 inches wide.
Right
and
now.
You saw how much I actually could have wrapped that around me. That was 7 yards of trim. And I bought it that way, so I didn't cut it. I hate cutting someone's tablet woven trim that they put time into making. So I left it the length it was. It was actually a little bit long for me when I was heavier. So I did girdle it when I was curvier. But I could wrap that around me like 3 or 4 times. And it's just crazy. The amount of
Amazing. Thank you so, so much.
No problem. And I'm going to end on a little fun video. We recently did a Pelican video, and actually I did lie. This is one instance because of that really narrow trim. I do have this particular one where it is tied in the front, but I did a wrap around where I wrapped it around itself. And so yeah, this is a funny video, and it did stay. Oop, nope, go back to the video. Hello, page down, page up. Possessed. Are you serious? You're not going to let me play my bird video? Oh, you know why? Because work has Facebook blocked. Anyway, yes, I'm in a ridiculous bird pose, but you can see me in, and yes, this is completely a gold sequined disco dress. This was for the Knowne World Party when it was the disco dance party. But it's a really fun dress. So I was going to end it on that. Sorry, guys. I had to switching to my work computer. It does not play Facebook. But here are some murals from Pompeii if we had some more time. And I'll just flip through the pictures to show you. You can see how thin that fabric is. Like, you can see her belly button. You can see the breasts exposed. You know, both of these are super, super sheer fabrics. We are on the same longitude down here in Louisiana as Cairo and Rome. So this one has a little bit of striping in it, which I thought was kind of interesting on the underside of it. I thought that was kind of neat. I'm not sure if that was the painter's discretion because it does not seem to be carried over into the top. And I do know they did not wear tops and bottoms separately. But here, again, where I was saying tying the collar around the waist is perfectly period. These are all 1st century from Pompeii, all of these murals. This is another one where she's got her palla draped around her. Now notice nobody is wearing a stola, the matronly garment that married women wore. Is anybody interested in wearing a stola? Because, and I'll let y'all respond in the chat, because in the evolution of the Roman Empire, it only lasted for about 200 years. So in the 1200 years of Rome, from its early inception to the death of the empire through the Republic, it was only fashionable on women in reality for about 200 years, which was a blip in time. It's still seen on the statuary because that's supposed to be the perfect woman or the perfect matron, the empress, etc. But did they actually wear it? Probably not. So here's one that I found. This is a preparation for a wedding. See how she has a little bit of decoration on the bottom of her dress, but it's otherwise pretty much plain. And then all of their decoration is made up in jewelry. Now this one is double belted, and that would be a whole nother class. I'll do a video on that and just drop it on the Courtesans page on how to belt something like that. Here's the statuary. You can see statuary doesn't show nipples. I mean, does show nipples. This particular one, and this is a perfectly period way to do it as well, is to just gather the fabric together, and these are tied with thread. Here's a larger one. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a scroll or a strophium. From the way it's moving, it looks more like a strophium to me than a scroll. So, and then here is one that is showing an underdress with the tunica and the stola. Either that or she just has bigger ornamentation at the shoulders than she does down the rest of her arm. And I think that is the last slide I have for you. And I am right at time. So are there any questions? And did everybody find something useful in this, more importantly?
Chat says overwhelmingly yes, useful.
Cool.
Thank you very much. Definitely helpful.
Are very welcome. And I have recorded it, so it's going to be available in the library